we're going to be talking about website accessibility today. I'm excited. Hey there, welcome back to the channel. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about website accessibility and just a few tips for you to really take a look at your website and see if you are accessible to people with disabilities. And you just need to think about these things when you have a website, especially if you DIY'd it, that there could be some gaps that you need to close on your site. For those that are new, I am Yasmin Robles with Robles Designs, where we create drool-worthy websites and brands for entrepreneurs hellbent on taking over the world. You can check us out, roblesdesigns.com. We have courses, we actually create websites for people as well, and we have a bunch of freebies, so go check us out, roblesdesigns.com. In this channel, we talk about tips and tricks for your website for those, especially for those do-it-yourselfers, which I'm so proud of you. You're trying to DIY your site, and these tips will just help your strategy, your marketing grow so much stronger on your website. Okay, so the first accessibility issue, and the one that I see the most often, is with color. You want to make sure that the colors that you're using on your site are not just consistent with your brand, consistent throughout the site, but they're not overstimulating. So they're not just all over the place and kind of, how would I say, like people aren't being bombarded with the color schemes that you have chosen, almost like as if you were like those gifts that make you feel like you're going crazy. You want to make sure that the colors that you've decided to use on your site are not just super overwhelming for people. You want to make sure that if people are printing your website or logo, as an example, they might not be printing it, but if they were to print the logo or the web page, that they can still read the information, they can still see everything that's going on, and they don't have to make too many adjustments. So you want to make sure, even with the logo, whenever I create logos, I create them in black and white. We do actually sometimes print them out just to make sure that all of the colors aren't too close in the, in the spectrum, so that, let's say, a red and a gray might end up blending in together. It might kind of just look all like it's one tone versus it being separate tones when you print out in black and white. So just make sure that if for some reason you were to switch your monitor to black and white, that you can still tell the difference. You can still clearly read everything that's on the site. The next color tip is making sure that there's enough contrast, which we talked about already with the black and white, but you want to make sure that it actually passes certain standards. So if I were you, I would go to WCAG and just type color contrast checker onto Google and you will find it. But WCAG has certain standards that you plug in your color codes and it'll tell you if you pass or fail, and it'll also give you an example of the text size. So if your text is this color, it is this size, maybe because it's so large it'll pass, but once it gets smaller in that color it won't pass. So you want to make sure you're using those guidelines in order to pursue the colors that you want on your site. Hey, just popping in real quick to let you know that we do have a free checklist for you to download. Go to roblesdesigns.com/checklist, and that'll basically give you a list of items that you should have on your site. You can go through that while you're DIYing your site, while you're looking through all of these accessibility items coming up. You can definitely go through, cross things off, and just like high-five yourself when you realize that you are totally amazing and you DIY'd your site the correct way. So yeah, go check that out, roblesdesigns.com/checklist. The next thing I see from people are fonts, and I see a couple of different variations of these ones, but just hear me out. So the one that kind of rubs me the wrong way, and I don't know why, it's just like my pet peeve, is using way too many fonts on any sort of design or any sort of web page. Ideally, you should just have 2, some people say 3, but I say 2 different fonts on your site. You don't want to have too many. It gets out of control, it doesn't look cohesive, and it's not good. It's not good design to have way too many fonts. So what you want to do is you want to choose your, I would say, personality font, your decorative font, your fancy font, whatever you want to call it, but it's basically the font that most feels like your brand. And if that is really script or just very unique in a way where if it were to get small, as in for body text, that it's hard to read, then you would say, I give you my awesome font the job of being a heading font. And so that font will only appear when it is time for a heading to appear. Everything else would be a plain Jane kind of font, so it would be like Helvetica, let's say, and everything else is just going to be plain and easy to read. The next thing or issue that people come across is those double spaces in between sentences. Don't do that. Don't do that. That's one, I believe that's kind of a mark of your age, because every time I've come across it, it's usually people that are slightly older. I actually also learned that I was supposed to hit double spaces after a sentence when I was learning how to type in with a typewriter. But then when I switched to learning how to type on a computer, that was not the case. So make sure that if you are putting copy on your site, to remove those double spaces. It messes with the spacing, especially on digital. So you just want to make sure no double spaces. It's just a single space in between when you finish a sentence after the period and when you start a sentence. The next thing you want to keep in mind is whether or not the font is responsive, and certain platforms will help you out with this. Now, if we are comparing WordPress themes and Squarespace, I have seen more do-it-yourselfers come across issues using WordPress with their fonts becoming too small when you are, it's just they don't adjust well when you are going from desktop to mobile versus Squarespace. So Squarespace does a neat trick where you could say shrink or increase your website size, your font size, in order to make it more easy to read for users versus it really depends on what theme you're on, what theme you're using with WordPress. So all you need to know really is, can your text or your font size be changed as people kind of go from desktop to mobile? Will it help with readability? If not, you might want to play around with the sizes that you currently have and just kind of get a good in-between solution for those. Okay, so now let's jump into layouts. The first tip I have for you in order to make your layout a little bit more accessible for people is to cut paragraphs into tiny paragraphs. So you want, the smaller the paragraph, the better. I would say 2 to 3 sentences per paragraph. And I understand, like, even with my own kids, the teachers say, oh, a paragraph, it's 5 sentences. Well, first of all, my problem with that is that just because you have 5 sentences doesn't mean you're giving anything of value. But number 2, it's also when it comes to digital and you're reading on your phone or you're just reading on a web page, or like, not saying this is from experience, but you have a web page open on, a side of your window while you have the window that you're supposed to be working on when you're in your job, and you're kind of reading an article but having the other window open as well, and you get it. You want to make sure that the paragraphs are cut. So I would say 2 to 3 sentences per paragraph. Every so often throw in a 1-sentence paragraph, because it's just a lot easier to read. It's like easier for Google bots to read through. It's easier for humans to read through. And you also don't want people to go onto your webpage and look at all the text and go, oh God, it's like I'm reading my European history, AP European history book, right? You want them to say, okay, well, I'm just going to kind of skim through this real quick. You don't want them to feel overwhelmed, and you don't want them to say, wow, this is really great information. I'm just going to bookmark this and come back to it, because guess what? They won't come back to it. I have way too many bookmarks. I have way too many tabs, and I never go back to those. So avoid that just avoid it by having shorter paragraphs. Now ask yourself, is my layout consistent? I have seen people have really great websites. So I'll look at their homepage and I'll think this is just the best DIY web page ever. I then go to their about page and it feels like it's a completely different site because they are not consistent. Think about it in a way where if your brand needs to be consistent, your colors are consistent, also the layout needs to be consistent. And I don't mean basically duplicating every page, but if you treat certain sections of the page specific way, you want them to be treated that same way on another page. So let's say, for example, that all of your images almost all over the place are in a circle, right? So everything looks like it's been cropped into a circle, and then all of a sudden I see a page that is where it's not cropped into a circle. It's like kind of like off-putting, right? So you want to make sure your entire layout is consistent and it just kind of flows. Finally, have you tested your site with some accessibility tools? There's a couple of them out there online. You can probably just put in your URL and it'll spit out a report for you. But these are great if you want to really ensure that you are doing the right thing, because it can tell you, your alt text, you're missing alt text, which is basically what screen readers would read. So make sure to check out a couple of my previous videos for more information on alt text. But you want to make sure that it's scanning your site and it's bringing up all of these inconsistencies, all of these gaps that have to do with accessibility. Now, note that with CMS systems and even fully coded sites, I don't think anyone out there is fully 100% accessible, but this just will give you a really great jumping off point and knowledge of where the gaps are so that you can close them and just have an amazing website that caters to not just regular people, right? But also people with certain disabilities. Like I might totally be into, like my mom, right? So she has a hard time when they're not mobile friendly because she on her phone, she has a hard time seeing, and her on her phone, it just gets hard, right? So somebody could potentially miss out on her and her crochet habit, because she keeps buying yarn and crocheting things, and they might miss out on my mom buying a bunch of yarn in bulk, right? Just because she couldn't figure out, the navigation, or she couldn't figure out that your non-friendly, non-mobile friendly website had to be zoomed in order to be able to get all the information in. So just keep these items in mind. So make sure you're looking at your layout, your color, your fonts, and there's so many other things that actually go into accessibility, and it is a very important topic without diving too deep as to like statistics and stuff like that. Keep that in mind. Accessibility rules, and you will have to make decisions for your design, whether you choose the design or you choose accessibility, and how to balance the two and make a wonderful website. If you have any questions, let me know. Put them in the comments and I will respond. Check us out on Instagram at Robus Design Studio, and I will catch you in the next episode. Bye.